Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. This one's going to be really, really cool. I've gotten to see a little preview of Sean's story, and I can't wait for you to hear it from him. So welcome to the show, Sean. I'm really glad you're here.
Thanks, Sue. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to be here.
This is going to be really cool. So let's just dive in. I know this is really cool. So tell us first, what was life like before, kind of the entrepreneurial bug hit you? What was that like? Paint me a picture.
I worked in sales, and I worked in advertising sales, and I really loved it. I thrived in sales, and I actually probably thought that I was going to probably stick along my entire career staying in like advertising sales. But then around, I can't remember his exact, I think it was like 1998, something like that. I wound up starting to do stand-up comedy, and I realized that, hey, I need my own place where I can practice my stand-up comedy. So I found a restaurant that was closed at night, and I convinced them to let me run a comedy club in there. And so I started my own comedy club inside this restaurant, and I did 7 shows every week for 8 years. So I headlined on Thursday nights. I did 1 show, Fridays 3 shows, Saturdays 3 shows. So I did those 7 shows every single week for 8 years to get solid as a stand-up comedian. And I think it was through running that I thought, I think I'd like to do some other stuff. And when I was younger, I'd had a couple small businesses. I'd done things like, selling door to door. And I'd had when I first came home from Desert Storm, I couldn't quite land a job right away. So I started a couple little small businesses. One was like I was selling baskets to flower shops and wholesaling baskets. And I did some swap meet businesses and stuff. But once I got kind of over and landed a corporate job, I thought, okay, this is good. This will do well. But then once I did that comedy club, it kind of like bit me. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I could go off and do some stuff that I love and have my own business. And that's kind of what led me to also wanting to try to create and sell my own TV show. So that's how it all got started.
That's pretty cool. Now, I've got to know, like when you were doing stand-up, it seems like, the whole thing is thinking on your feet, right? Did that help with your sales as well?
Oh, it was unbelievable. The connection between the two, I was a really good salesman. I started in sales, like going door to door, getting lead cards filled out for my dad over in Germany where we grew up. I used to go door to door and get lead cards filled out when I was 11 years old. So I've been working in sales. German school gets out at 1:00. I'd hop in the car with my dad, and we would listen all afternoon in the car. He had these Zig Zigler sales tapes. And Zig Ziglar sounds like a Baptist preacher, right? But when you're 11 years old and you're listening to that every afternoon and it's getting in your brain, I was exposed to that. So I'm listening to Zig Ziglar every afternoon. I'm going out, I'm knocking on doors and getting lead cards filled out for my dad. Then at night, I would go back on the appointments from the lead cards that I got filled out with my dad. And if he sold an insurance, because he was selling life insurance, if he sold a policy, I would get a commission, right? So I had every incentive in the world to sit there, be quiet while my dad pitched and sold insurance. So I went on hundreds and hundreds of sales calls when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. So it was not surprising that I wound up in sales. It was surprising that I didn't wind up going and selling one of my own services sooner. That was the surprising part, that I waited so long in life to go and kind of launch my own thing. But yeah, that's kind of what it was all like before I got started.
That's wild. And then also, how about, if you had a military stint, what was, how did that fit in?
Well, okay. So I'll tell you about this really cool experience I had while I was in the military, right? This is like an entrepreneur's dream. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I knew it was something special, right? But here I was, I was 19 years old. I was in the U.S. Army. I had a top secret clearance. I was working for military intelligence as a German translator. And this was right before I got deployed to Desert Storm. I was stationed at Fort Devens in Massachusetts, and we had a long weekend coming up. And there was an older sergeant who was in my class. He was an E6 and he was in special forces. I was like an E3. E3s and E6s don't talk to each other. That's just not, just doesn't happen. But because we were in like a classroom environment, we could kind of talk to each other. So he just said, he goes, "Hey, Private Kelly," he goes, "What are you doing for the long weekend?" I go, "I don't know. I don't have any plans," because we had a 4-day weekend coming up. And I go, "I don't have any friends or family around here." He goes, "You going home?" And I'm like, No. My family's in Germany." I go, "I'm not going anywhere." He goes, "Do you want to play an entrepreneur game with me this weekend?" It was 1989. I was 19. I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant. So I'm like, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. He goes, it's a business game. I go, "What kind of business game?" He goes, "Well, you and I will leave the barracks on Friday morning." And he goes, "We'll leave with just our IDs and no money, no nothing, just the clothes we're wearing and our photo IDs. And we'll go out and we'll see how much money we can make starting from scratch. And we can't come back to the barracks until Monday night. So we'll be gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday." And I go, "Okay, but how are we going to eat?" And he goes, "Yeah, now you're getting it." I go, No. I go, "Where are we going to sleep?" He goes, "Yeah, now you're catching on." And I go, No. I don't think I am catching on, man. I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "We got to make the money. Otherwise we can't eat. We don't have nowhere to sleep." And I go, okay. But he was so pumped up, and he was this special forces guy. So I just had this confidence, right? He had this amazing confidence. And I just thought, I just want to hang out with this guy. Okay. So we did it. And our first idea was we went dumpster diving, because in Massachusetts, you can get 10 cents for cans and bottles. So we redeemed those. We turned them in. We got some money. Then there was a guy in our unit that had a VW van. We hired him to drive us around to more dumpsters. We got more cans, more bottles. And while we're dumpster diving, we found someone had thrown away an entire collection of CDs, like all kinds of music. So we grabbed all those. Someone had thrown away a bunch of uniforms. So we grabbed all those. We took the uniforms to the Army Navy store, cashed them in. We took the CDs to the used music store, cashed those in. Cans and bottles, cashed those in. We took that money. We bought a Polaroid camera, some film, and 2 train tickets into Boston. We went into Boston. We stood out in front of the Cheers bar. This is 1989. Nobody has cell phones. Nobody had cameras. And we stood there with our Polaroid camera. And we said, "Pose by the Cheers sign, and for $5, we'll give you a Polaroid," right? So we're selling Polaroids like one after another. It's Friday night. People are lined up down the street. Everybody wants to get their picture by the thing. I'm running back down to the drugstore, buying us more and more Polaroid film. And then that night when the bar closed, which was maybe 1 in the morning, we'd made a lot of money. So we decided to go, instead of getting a hotel room, we went to Dunkin' Donuts, bought a cup of coffee, told the lady behind the counter what we were doing, and asked if we could sleep in a booth. She goes, "I don't care." She goes, "I feel safer with you guys sleeping there than being in here alone." True. So we slept in the booth. And the next morning we woke up with sore backs, and we got the newspaper. We went to the classifieds, and we were looking for some way to reinvest that money. And we found a guy that was selling T-shirts that said "I Heart Boston" across the chest. And he had an entire storage unit, and he wanted $1 a shirt. So we got in a taxi. We went over. We met the guy there. We had duffel bags, and we just filled them with as many shirts as we could. We filled up the trunk of the taxi. We had the taxi drive us back by the Cheers bar. There was a church about a block away. We stashed all the shirts in the bushes, and then we would just take a bag of shirts at a time, go back over there. We were selling Polaroids. We're selling T-shirts. You could get a T-shirt for $5. You could get a Polaroid for $5. And by the end of that weekend, by Monday night, we'd made $3,500 starting with scratch from zero. And it was it changed something in my mind, because it made me realize, because I've been living on my own since I was 16. So I had always been worried about money and finances and paying my bills, and would I make enough money to pay my bills or to be able to eat and all this stuff. And what happened with that one experience, that one weekend, is I realized something. I realized, hey, I'm going to be okay. As long as I've got my health, I can lose everything, and within days I could build it back up, just like we did. And so where I actually, at that point in my life at 19, I had been thinking about a career in the military. I realized, no, that would be selling myself short. I got to get out of the military as soon as I can. And I got to start, a civilian career. And so when I got out of the military, I started my first little business, which was the basket business. And then from there, I started buying used uniforms at a uniform plant and selling them at the swap meet. And I had to learn a little Spanish to do that. So I'd stand out there and I'd be like, pantalones 3x5, camisas por el trabajo, manga largo, manga corto, $1. And I was selling used like uniforms to guys who were like roofers and mechanics and all that at the swap meet. So I did those two businesses. And then I realized after I did that for a while, I realized, you know what, I probably should get some like legit training, like something. So that's when I went into selling advertising. They sent me to a school where they were through formal like sales training. And it was the first time in my life I've been exposed to sales my whole life, but the first time I've been given formal training. And that's kind of what launched it all. That's what got it all going.
That's so amazing. I love that story so much.
Yeah, me too. I actually love it so much that I tried to pitch it as a TV show once. I was calling it Starting From Scratch, and I shot a little reel, and I just thought, how cool is this? Just like, you just go out and you spend a long weekend and you just go, okay, I'm not going to eat or sleep anywhere unless I make money first.
I can't believe it didn't get picked up. I feel like there has been a show like that since then. You know,
there has. There was that guy, that sales guru guy. I can't think of his name right now. He has the 10X stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I know who you mean.
You know that guy? Grant Cardone. Discovery did a very similar show with him, but I did this and pitched this like 15 years ago. I was just
That's the thing. You were way ahead of your time.
I was ahead of my time. But what a cool experience. And I recommend that for any young entrepreneur, well, young or old, doesn't matter. Like if you could just take like a long weekend and just say, okay, I'm going to leave the house and I'm not, I'm just going to walk out of the front door of my house with just the clothes I'm wearing, just my ID, and I'm not coming back for 4 days, and I'm going to see how much money I can make. It's crazy how inventive your mind will get.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh man, that could be an outdoor activity too. Like, all right, guys.
I thought about like what I would do now, like how, like I think what I would do, like if I had to do it all over again, is I would make just enough money to go buy a bucket and a squeegee, and I'd go to businesses and offer to clean their windows in exchange for tips, And that's probably how I build up my first little bankroll. But the key is to keep reinvesting it, and then to find something where you can just, like we were doing in front of that Cheers bar, where you're just racking it in. Well, it was cool. It was really cool.
I love that. That's cool. And I'm thinking back to when you were a little kid listening to all this Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
Your dad was pretty smart there, getting that programming in early and young.
Yeah, I don't even think he had any idea what he was doing. He didn't realize I was picking up on all this. He would do all that to keep himself motivated in between sales calls and stuff like that. He just loved Zig Ziglar. But yeah, it was good. It was really good program. It was really good.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Little pictures have big ears, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. And so then eventually you do end up with a TV show. Let's pick your story back up there.
Yeah. Okay. So many years later, at this point, I'm 40 years old, right? And I had been managing a newspaper in San Diego. I had about 111 salespeople or, staff that worked there for me. And I built this newspaper in San Diego from where it was doing $3 million a year. And I got it up to doing $26 million a year. And I did that in 36 months, which is incredible, and kept it there for like another 9 years. But while I was managing the newspaper, I got interested in stand-up comedy because I'd always wanted to do comedy. And then that's when I went and launched my own comedy club, and I'm doing comedy. So at this point, I'm managing the newspaper during the day. I'm doing stand-up comedy at night. Then a friend of mine asked me to cover a charity auction for him. And I wasn't an auctioneer, but he had double booked himself. And I go, dude, I can't do that. And then he told me how much it paid. And I'm like, I can do that. So I watched an auctioneer on YouTube. I went and did it for the American Cancer Society in La Jolla. And at the end of the night, I didn't know if they were going to be happy or upset, but they were thrilled how much money I had raised. And so they handed me a check at the end of the night. And my wife wisely said, hey, just take that money, reinvest it, and go hire a really good auctioneer to give you coaching and teach you how to do it. So I took all that money, it was several $1,000s. I found the best auctioneer at that time in America who'd won the big calling contest for the National Auctioneer Association 9 years in a row. He lived in Bakersfield, California when he was still alive. I called him up and introduced myself. And I said, hey, blah, 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 blah. This is who I am. I go, here's how much money I have. How much coaching will you give me? He goes, I'll give you 4 10-hour days. And I said, I'll be there Monday. And I drove up there, spent 4 days with them. And, you're not an auctioneer at the end. You just know how to bid call, but you only know how to do it really slowly, right?
Oh, I was going to say, do you get the whole thing?
No, I thought I was going to walk out of there just like, I'm going to, just like doing the whole bid call, right? You walk out of there knowing how to do it very slowly, and you know what to say and when to say it, not how to all that. Now you got to just practice every day. So at this point in my life, I was managing the newspaper, right? Growing that thing. I had the comedy club where I was doing 8 shows a week, and I just started booking myself doing charity auctions. So I turned 40. I was about to turn 40. It was like 2 days before I turned 40. And I woke up, and when you have like certain birthdays or like milestones, and I woke up and I realized, I never pursued my lifelong dream. Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be on television. I took a look in the mirror. I saw this bald face. I thought, man, I got more of a face for radio than television at this point. So I thought the only way I'm going to have my own TV show is if I create and sell a show that I can star on, right? So I thought because I had never been on an audition. I'd never done any casting. I didn't have an agent, no manager. I knew nothing about show business. I was selling advertising and doing stand-up comedy in like a Greek restaurant at night, So here's what I did. At my 40th birthday party 2 days later, I tell all my friends and family, I say, hey guys, listen, I'm gonna have my own TV show. I'm gonna star on my own TV show, and it's gonna be a worldwide hit. And they go, wow, that's amazing. What's it called? I'm like, oh, I don't know yet. Oh, okay. Well, what channel is it gonna be on? Oh, I'm not sure. And they're like, well, what's it about? I'm like, oh, I don't have the idea yet. And they're like, what? They're like, this is like just some kind of dream you have. And I'm like, yeah. They're all like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. Right. But my wife, she had seen me reinvent myself a bunch of times. And she's like, listen, if that's what you want, I know you can get it. And so I do the birthday party. 2 nights later, I do a charity auction in La Jolla. A guy comes up to me afterwards who was one of my clients from the newspaper, and he had a storage facility, and I'd sold him advertising years ago. And he came up and he's like, Sean, he goes, hey man, he goes, I knew you did stand up because I didn't know you were an auctioneer. I go, yeah, I just started doing these. He goes, dude, you should come do our storage auction. I go, what's that? And so he explains it to me, and I'm like, really? So I go, when's your next one? He goes, Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, I go out and I watch this storage auction. I never seen one. This was before there was any on TV. So I watched this. There's about 25, 26 people there. These storage units were selling for $20, $25, $30 each. And there were 90 of them in the parking lot. They were the big boxes, the big wooden boxes. They'd bring them out to the parking lot, light them up. So immediately I think to myself, this is it. This is my show. I'll be that storage auctioneer, and I'll use my comedy. I'll make fun of the bidders. I'll give them nicknames. I'll pit them against each other. I get them fighting, all that stuff. So I go back into the office. I convince it was that guy. It was his brother that owned the place. So I convinced his brother to let me do the next auction. And he's like, okay, dude. So my wife and I, we went to every single swap meet in San Diego County for the next, every Saturday and Sunday for the next month and a half. And we met with 2,000 different people selling at the swap meets. And we had a clipboard and we said, hey, we got a gigantic storage auction coming up. Would you like to be on our email and phone list? Would you like to be invited? Yes, yes, yes. So we signed up 2,000 people over about 6 weeks. So then I promote the first one. I hired a camera guy who I met at like a wedding. He was like one of these wedding videographers. And I said, hey man, I'm going to try to film something and turn it into a TV show. Do you want to go in on it with me? He goes, oh, no, man. He goes, it's too hard to try to sell a TV show. He goes, but I'll do it for you for $1,500. So I told him, I said, I only need like about a 3-4 minute like edited reel, but it needs to be high energy. I need you to catch all the beats of the show, the beginning, the middle, the end, kind of tell the story. He goes, I got you, right? So he comes, we do the auction, and the morning of the auction, we'd been blasting out emails and phone blasts and everything. 800 people show up. Yeah, 800 people. We had marketed the heck out of this thing. So 800 people show up, and it was just a madhouse. So anyway, we get the whole thing filmed. It took the entire day because I had 90 units to sell, and there were so many people. Just trying to get 800 people to get a peek inside the unit before you sell it takes forever. So, but it was great because people were pushing and shoving and started yelling at each other, and I'm encouraging it because I'm like I'm kind of like the Jerry Springer. It's kind of like Jerry Springer meets WWF meets Antiques Roadshow, right? All mixed together. And so we get it all filmed. About a week later, he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I got your reel done." So I drive over to his office. I watch it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I end up like calling my boss at the newspaper, and I said, "I need to take a couple of vacation days." He goes, "Yeah, no problem." So I go. So the very next morning, I get on the computer. I Google every television network in America, like all the cable ones. I mean, everything from NBC all the way down to like country music television, right? I do them all. And I get on the phone and I start calling them. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to speak with someone about this TV show idea." And they're like, "Who are you? What is it?" It doesn't work like this. And every single network in America hung up on me. So then I went back to
record.
Every single one of them. They all like, "Who are you? What now?" Click, click, click. So then I went back to the beginning of my list and I called the very first one again, NBC, where I'd started. This time I'm like, "Hey, yes, I need to go ahead and speak with someone in the for the new shows." They go, "Development?" I go, "Yes, development." And they go, "Okay, 1 minute." And then I get put through and they're like, "May I ask who's calling?" I'm like, "Just let her know it's Sean." And they go, "Okay." So all of a sudden the head of development gets on and she goes, she goes, "Hello, who's this?" And I go, "This is Sean." She goes, "Oh, hi." And I go, "Yeah, listen, I got your next great, hit television show and it's wonderful. I can't wait to come in and tell you about it and show you the video." And she said, "Oh, wait a minute. Who are you?" And so I tell her, and she goes, No, stop talking. Don't tell me another word. And I go, "Why?" And she goes, we're not allowed to listen to unsolicited ideas. Our attorneys prohibit it. Like if we're already working on a show that's similar, we could get sued. She goes, "I love you. I love your tenacity. I love that you got past my gatekeepers." She goes, "But you can't tell me." She goes, "What you need to do is you need to get an agent, and then the agent will set this meeting up, and then you can come in and pitch ideas." I go, "Okay, great." And she goes, "So go get an agent." And I said, "Okay." I go, "What are some of the names of these agents?" She goes, "What? You don't know the names of the agencies?" I go, "No." She goes, "Wow, you are green." She goes, like WME, CAA. She starts listing off all these agencies. So I'm quickly jotting them down. So then I Google those. I call every single agency, same thing. Every single agent I must have called 60 agencies. Couldn't get through. They're like, "Who are you? Do you have friends that are clients here? No. Have you been referred? No. Okay, it doesn't work." Click, click, click. And I thought to myself, how do you break into Hollywood? So every time I would get denied and get hung up on before, I would try to pick up keywords or whatever. So one of the agencies, WME, I looked up one of their top agents for non-scripted, and I got his name, and I called WME back, and I said, "Yeah, can I speak with like Peter, whatever his name was," right? And so I get through to his gatekeeper, and she goes, "Da da da," and she goes, "What's this about?" And I go, "Yeah, da da da," and I got this show, and I've already spoke to this person at NBC, and I just need an agent. She's like, "I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that." She goes, "But you know what? You seem like a nice guy." She goes, "My boyfriend's trying to do this. He's pitching to production companies." I go, "Oh, what are those?" And then she goes, "You don't know what a production company is?" She goes, "Wow, you really don't know anything." And so then she explained what a production company was. So then I Googled those. I called all those, never could get through to any decision makers at a production company. Then someone at a production company, one gatekeeper said, "You can get an entertainment attorney. They might help you." So I started calling entertainment attorneys. None of them call me back. So the long story short, I took my little reel. I bought a domain name. I put it up there, and I said, "Your next hit TV show." And I thought, I'm going to try to find anyone at a production company looking for show ideas. So I bought Google AdWords, and I targeted them towards Santa Monica, where all the production companies are. And I bid the per click up to $25 per click, because I figured, if I could just get any calls. No clicks, no calls for 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, one phone call. Guy gets on. He's like, "Is this Sean Kelly?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, my name's Tobin." And he goes, "We saw your reel. We think it might make a great TV show." I go, "That's why I shot it." He goes, "Listen, we're not a production company. We're a motion graphics company. But the owner of our company was at the dog park the other morning, and he met this woman, and she owns a production company. She gave us an open door policy to pitch. We love your idea. We'd like to pitch it first. What do you think?" I said, "Let's do it." Met up with these guys. We went, we pitched, and the lady loved it. she sold it initially to A&E, and it was going to be called Storage Wars, which would have been the largest storage auction show in the world. And a few weeks later, A&E calls her back and says, turns out our sister channel, the History Channel, already optioned a very similar show. It's moving to A&E. That's going to become Storage Wars. We're canceling the contract. So I was like, oh man, I went from where I thought I was going to be on A&E. She goes, don't panic. We're going to try to sell it. Then we got on True TV. True TV got it. They bought a pilot. We shot the pilot. The pilot didn't go well. And the network says, nope, we don't want it. So then I went back to the production company. I said, look, just give me one more shot. And I go, I won't even charge you guys to make the pilot. Let's just do it. So we did it one more time and they loved it and they aired it. And it was the highest rated show in True TV's history. And immediately the next day, they bought the first 2 seasons from us. And so 9 months after I had announced at my birthday party I was going to have my own TV show and I had no idea how I was going to do it, I was starring on True TV. Amazing. I did 6 seasons on True TV. And then when the show got canceled in 2000, and I think it was 2013, after this, like the 6th season, it was already airing internationally in 127 countries. And the Brits in the UK had fallen in love with the show. They loved the big, gigantic, stupid American stereotypes that were on the show. So I found out that they were really interested, and I found out that the American production company was going to sell the British network the rights to it. So I flew to France to where they buy and sell these formats. And I got myself an invitation to the meeting. And while we were in the meeting, I just pitched them on my wife and I moving to London and starring on the British version. And they're like, would you do that? I'm like, I would love to do that. And so then we moved to London, and for 4 more years, I filmed another 6 seasons. And then at the end of that, we created a celebrity edition where British celebrities would came on my show and they would bid on storage units, and all their profits would go to their favorite charity. And so then I made Celebrity Storage Hunters UK. So so I had Storage Hunters, then I had Storage Hunters UK, and then I had Celebrity Storage Hunters.
Amazing.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, so I ended up spending 12 seasons and many years of my life on television. And that thing still airs in reruns in like 127 countries, mostly on the Discovery Channel.
Wow. That is so, I'm totally going to pull a YouTube for sure. That's so freaking
Yeah, it's insane. It's like one of those things. But what, I got to tell you, Sue, what made me have the confidence that I could do it was I'd already gone from where I was selling advertising to where I had created myself to be a stand-up comedian, and where I had also become an auctioneer. And I had kind of created this little formula. It's like this little 15-step thing that I would follow to kind of like reinvent myself. So when I kind of told my friends and family at the birthday party that, hey, I'm going to just do this, I knew at that moment that I was going to follow these 15 steps. And it worked. I mean, it's like trying to sell a TV show is like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Yeah. And to do it and to be starring on TV 9 months after you announce that without having an idea is incredible. Yes. But what I want people to know is like, there are steps that you can follow. And the very first step is you have to dream it up and come up with the idea. Then number 2, you have to visualize it. You have to like actually see yourself doing it, and in a very detailed way. And then you need to convince yourself beyond any shadow of the doubt that you can do this. Like, this is going to come true. Those are the first like few steps that you have to do. If you can't get those down, then forget about the rest of the steps that you have to follow. Those are the first ones that you have to really lock in on. And what was really cool about this was once I saw the storage auction, I thought, yes, this is going to be my show. Then I started visualizing like myself on set, and I could see cameramen and sound guys, and I could see a whole crew, and I could hear I could see a director in my mind going, action, and I saw it all. It was very visual. What was so crazy was when we moved to London, filming the very first episode for the British network, it was July of 2014. We're in East London in Docklands, down along the river there. And it was kind of like a drizzly July, UK day. And I'm standing there, and it's early in the morning, and there's like about 100 people in front of me. There's crew everywhere. There's a boom mic. There's these cameramen everywhere, and all of a sudden, I just heard the little, the British director go, "All right, mate, and action!" Right, and it was my complete visualization of what I'd had a few years earlier, just completely coming true. And it was just kind of mind blowing because I just felt like I was in my dream,
Yeah. Like you've been here before, like.
Yes. And that's you create your own deja vu moment. So what happens is so what people don't realize is all of this stuff we see in the world, when you leave everything you see, every product in your house, every building, every car, everything started in someone's brain. They came up with the idea first. They saw it, they visualized it, then they kind of drew it out, and then they breathed life into it. So there's nothing in this world that hasn't first started in our minds. And I don't think that people realize how capable they are of doing this. Like it doesn't just have to live in your mind. As a matter of fact, if you can bring it to life in your mind, and then you can breathe life into it and actually bring it out into the world, and we're all capable of this. And so if you're capable of dreaming it and seeing it, you are capable of making it happen. So who would have ever thought that, from the moment where at that birthday party, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have my own TV show, that a couple years later, I'm executive producing the show in the UK, and it was incredible. And what was really cool about this was I became famous in the UK as a result of that show, because it was way more popular than the one on True TV in the US. In the US, Storage Wars became more popular on A&E. But in the UK, Storage Hunters was the big show, because the channel I was on that the BBC owned was called Dave, and it's Freeview. And everybody in the UK gets that channel for free. So everyone can watch it. So what ended up happening was, as a result of that, because I became famous there, I was actually able to fulfill a second dream I'd always had, which was going out on a big stand-up comedy tour. So in the US, I wasn't a famous comedian. I've been working at comedy, doing those 7 shows every week for 8 years. I was a great comic. I was hilarious, but I had never gotten my big break, right? Whereas in the UK, I was able to parlay that fame into enough interest in people's minds that they would buy tickets and come see me do comedy. So my wife and I did a 122 city stand-up comedy tour in 2017.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which we learned afterwards. I was 47 at the time. She was 52. And we both turned to each other and were like, we would have loved this in our 20s. But as you get older, you're like, oh my God. Because to do that many, you have to every day you have to ride 7-8 hours in a van to the next city and unpack and go to the theater and do a sound check. And then you have to do the show. And then after the show, we go to the lobby and sell merchandise, because that's the only way you're making money. You're not making off the ticket sales. Ticket sales cover the cost of the theater. Mm-hmm. So you're selling T-shirts and whatever you can, and autographed headshots, and you're posing for pictures. And so the show was 90 minutes long, but sometimes after the show, we'd spend 3 to 4 hours in the lobby meeting every single person who came. And then the next day, getting in a van and driving and doing it all over again. And you could just imagine it's exhausting.
Not as glamorous as it seems like it might be.
But it was so cool, because I made 2 dreams come true. I did the TV show and the comedy tour, and what a incredibly different life from just selling advertising.
No kidding. This is amazing. The fact that you're able to, 9 months after saying, hey, I'm going to do this thing, you did the thing.
Yes.
And then, that's amazing. Now, I know it's morphed since then. What's up now?
Okay, so now I'm doing, I started this thing called Do the Big Dream, because what I realized is that there are a lot of people out there who have had a big dream like I did, like a lifelong dream, but they don't really know how to get started, or they've given up on the dream, or maybe I'm too old now, or maybe I'm too young and I need to get some more experience, or whatever excuse they're telling themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So I was in their shoes 100%. I procrastinated till I was 40, right? So I realized, okay, I've got some fundamental pillar skills that really helped me, which were, I had this wonderful experience when I was 11 years old, going door to door for my dad, getting those lead cards. I had this incredible experience through my dad where I really learned how to overcome the fear of rejection. And then I had a really amazing encounter when I was 15 with an Olympic gold medalist skier who taught me, like, just on one ride up the mountain on the chairlift, he taught me one lesson that completely changed like how I viewed myself and gave me like some incredible self-confidence. And then riding in the car and listening to Zig Zigler all those years and learning everything about sales, I realized, wow, okay, not having a fear of rejection, having a real sincere confidence, and knowing how to sell. Those three skills, you can springboard off of those three skills pretty much anything you want to accomplish in life. And so then when I came up this other thing where this little formula that I was following on doing all these other things, I decided to document it. So I have the 15 steps and exactly how to do each one of the steps. So with Do the Big Dream, I created this website, dothebigdream.com. But really all that leads to is you can go there, you kind of hear my story. You can see all the photos of me doing the TV show and all the different celebrities I've worked with over the years. But what it really leads to is it's a link over to a private Facebook group, which is free to join. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be launching that here in early February, probably around first week of February, probably around the 5th or 7th, something like that. So the idea there is to get a bunch of people in there and then start giving them some coaching and some mentoring. I've been fortunate that I had some people come to me over the last few years and say, hey man, how did you do this? How did you do that? Could you help me? And one of those was a young man. He was a freshman he was a senior in college, and I had the comedy club in San Diego. And I hadn't created Storage Hunters yet. I just had the comedy club. And he walks into the club one evening, introduces himself. He was like, he's like 21, 22 years old. He was a young Chinese guy. And he says, he goes, hey, can I get some stage time and audition for you? And I go, yeah, sure. He seemed like a nice kid. So I threw him up on stage, and he wasn't good at all. He was pretty bad, actually. And, but he had something really interesting about him. Like, he's this young Chinese guy, and he kind of talked like he was like an African-American rapper, And I was like, what's the story here? So he gets off stage, have him come sit down at the table with me. And I said, hey, I go, what's your story, man? I go, listen, what is your background? Like, what, He goes, oh, well, I moved to America when I was 13. I didn't speak English. We moved here from Hong Kong. And he goes, and I learned English mostly by watching Yo MTV Raps and Rap City. I'm like, oh, man, that's hilarious. I go, listen, so you didn't speak a word of English. You moved to America. You start learning. That's how you start learning English and all that stuff. And he goes, yeah. I go, dude, that's your story. I go, you write stand-up comedy material about your life. I'll give you tons of stage time. And I go, and then eventually you could write a book about your life. You can give public speaking talks. You could, if you want to be in movies and television, you've got this great bio. You can go do all of that stuff. And I go, as long as you stick with that. So anyway, he would come into my comedy club and I would coach him on his comedy. And then at one point he fell into a bad group of guys. He didn't mean to, but he did. And they got him a job working at a strip club as like a DJ. And there was some bad stuff going down there. So I called him up one day and I said, hey, Jimmy, I go, are you really working as a DJ at a strip club? And he goes, yeah. And I go, listen, man, you have way too much talent for that. And I said, and I go, and you become what you surround yourself with. And I said, so here's your options. You can either quit immediately, call them today, tell them you're quitting, and pack your car up and move to LA and start going on auditions, and we'll be friends forever. Or you can lose my phone number. Don't ever call me again. He goes, are you serious? I go, yep, I'm dead serious, man. I go, because I just can't stand aside and watch someone who I care about go down this path. To his credit, he quit that day. So now he's a famous actor. His name is Jimmy O Yang. He's had 2 comedy specials on Amazon. He's been in movies like Crazy Rich Asians. He's on the television show Silicon Valley. He's on the television show Space Force with Steve Carell. He's been in loads and loads of movies, and he's given like a talk at Google to all the employees called Google Talk. and he talked about me in this, telling everybody how I was his mentor and how I helped him and how I saved him from this bad career path and, you know, coached him along. So after he did that got seen by like millions of people. So occasionally I started getting like emails from strangers like, hey, I heard you were Jimmy's mentor and whatever. Could you help me? And I was like, what is this all about? So I helped a couple other close friends. I really loved it. It was really nice. And then I thought, okay, this would be a great way to give back. Do the big dream, you know, get people into the Facebook group, start giving them a bunch of free information, find the people who are really excited about it. And then for the ones that want to go deeper or want some help, then maybe I, set up some coaching or, I'm creating a course right now that they can go through, but there's just going to be a lot of cool free information in there for the people who are just like, yeah, you know what? Life is short. We get one shot. Let's make this happen.
I love that so much. This is amazing. I can't even wait to hear like all the things that come out of this.
Me too. Dream. Like, honestly, I can't wait to hear meet all the different people and what their dreams are, and then start hearing people like with Jimmy, like the fact that I was, you can actually Google Jimmy O Yang at giving Google Talk and you can watch it. And the lady goes, in your book, because he wrote the book too. The one I said to him, hey, you can write a book about your life someday and talk about it. Well, he wrote the book. The book's called How to American, an Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents. It's hilarious. And in there, he's got a chapter called The Godfather where he talks about me. So the interviewer at Google, she goes, so who's the Sean Kelly guy? And then he's like, oh, Sean Kelly, that's a good friend of mine. He was my mentor. He helped me along. He was the one that saved me from going down that bad path. He's the one that got me into show business. And so just like seeing other people that I've helped go on to do cool things, I realized, oh, wow, I'm about to impact a bunch of people and it's going to be cool.
Oh, yeah. And then the ripple effect, because those people will be like, hey, here's what I learned. You can do it too.
Yeah. And I'm still out there, Sue, doing charity fundraising auctions. I'm like, I think I've got in 2024, I've got about 17 or 18 of these lined up. And usually I'm raising somewhere between 300,000 to 800,000 a night for these charities, which is also really rewarding. So things are going well. It's cool. It's exciting.
That's really incredible. And I know you've raised, is it $500 million?
Yes. Isn't that amazing? I've been at it for a long time. I've been doing it for a long time. And when you have nights where you're doing like $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, it starts to add up, and you go, you add, you're like, oh, I've been at it for 10 years. Oh, I've been at it for 15 years. Oh, I've been at it for 20 years, So it starts to add up over the years and it gets crazy, but it's nice because I'm raising money mostly for now for like children's hospitals, for like private schools and just, different kinds. It's the charities are kind of across the board, but a lot of them tend to be for children. I just did the Boys and Girls Club in Pasadena a couple weeks ago where I auctioned off Christmas trees, be right before Christmas for them. And I just auctioned off Christmas trees, raised $180,000. It was crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, Dude, it's cool.
All right. So remember how you bought matching ugly Christmas sweaters? I think your wife needs to go out and buy you a cape. She can have one too, because she's clearly, helped to make this possible. I think you guys need capes.
That'd be nice. Yeah. It might go to my ego, but here I just start showing up in my cape. They're like, who's that crazy dude in the cape? But Lori and I we had a fun ride because when the thing was when Lori and I first got married, I just come home from Desert Storm and we were broke. We were so broke. We were broke, broke, top ramen, broke, where you're just eating ramen for every meal. Yeah. And now we've traveled around the world. We've been over to 93 countries, had a few different TV shows. Just the ride that Lori and I have had together going through this whole experience has been incredible.
It really is.
Yeah.
I kind of could see a movie happening because this is.
It's a crazy story. I'll tell you what. For all your listeners out there, all the entrepreneurs that just know that like whatever when you set a big goal or you have a big dream, make sure it's big because you have a good chance of making it come true. And I remember when I was younger, I would set goals, but I wasn't setting them big enough. And then it even seemed a little crazy to me when I told everyone I was going to have my own TV show. But you have to, I'll tell you, that thing I told you about meeting that gold medalist? Okay, I'll tell you the story because it's really fast and it's an easy story, but it's a good one. And the lesson that he taught me, all your listeners can take this lesson. It's incredible. So I was 15 years old. I had been skiing on the ski team in Germany. I was like my local town had a ski team. But I was, my father always, because he sold life insurance, he was a commission sales guy. He always kind of lived paycheck to paycheck. So we never had much money. So I was a little bit of like the charity case for the ski team in town. As a matter of fact, like I was the kid that had to race on rental skis and rental boots. And I didn't have like an aerodynamic race suit. I had like sweatpants and an oversized jacket. But I was just happy to be on the ski team. I mean, honestly, like literally, if I'd never won anything, I was just happy that I got to go skiing because I just loved it. But my youth group through church went to Switzerland for a ski retreat. And it sounds crazy, but we're in Germany. Switzerland's like 2 hours away. So it wasn't that far, right? And again, I go with my youth group there, but I was the only one who was on a ski team. So everybody else was taking like beginner lessons. So I'm off skiing by myself, and I was a fast skier. I had no fear really. So I remember I had my headphones on and I'm like listening to Van Halen and I'm racing down this mountain. It's like 1985. I'm 15 years old, and like a bat out of hell, I'm going down this black run in Bengen, Switzerland. And all of a sudden I remember going past some guy, but it was just like a blur, I just whizzed past him and down the mountain I go. And I get down by the chairlift and all of a sudden I start hearing someone yelling. So I take my headphones off and this guy's like, hey, you, hey kid. So I turn around and the guy goes, hey, you. And I go, yeah. I go, me? And he goes, oh, you speak English? And I go, yeah. And he goes, oh, great. He goes, awesome, man. He goes, hey, are you here for the, this was in Bengen, Switzerland. And I can't remember what it was called. He's like, are you here for the such and such? Right. And I go, what? I go, no, I'm here with my church group. He goes, your church group? He goes, where do you live? I go, I live in Germany. He goes, you live in Germany? I go, yeah. And he goes, but you speak English? I go, yeah, I'm American. He goes, oh, wow, interesting. He goes, but you're not here for and I go, I don't even know what that is. He goes, it's the World Cup. And I go, the World Cup? I go, no, man. I go, I'm not here for the World Cup. And he goes, I just saw you coming down the mountain. And I go, oh no. He goes, you should race, man. And I go, oh no, I do race. He goes, oh, you race. He goes, how many races have you won? I go, oh, I've never won any races. He goes, why not? I go, well, I got these rental skis and the rental boots and, all the other kids have got private clinics and top of the line gear, this and that. And he's like, whoa. He goes, hey, he goes, shut up. I go, what? Shut up. He goes, be quiet. Stop talking. He goes, get on the chair, lift with me and go up the mountain. And at this point, I'm like, I'm not sure if I even want to do that. Right. I get on the chairlift with this guy and he goes, hey man, he goes, have you ever heard of Billy the Kid? And I go, the cowboy? And he goes, no. He goes, let me ask you something. He goes, did you watch the Olympics in Sarajevo last year? And I goes, did you watch the downhill skiing? And I go, oh yeah, I did. I go, an American won the gold for the first time. I go, his name's like Bill. And he goes, yeah, Bill Johnson. That's me. I'm Billy the Kid. I go, you are Bill Johnson. I go, you're Billy the Kid. And he goes, yes, I am. And he goes, listen, man. He goes, I didn't ski up to you to become friends with you. He goes, I got plenty of friends. He goes, I skied up to you. He goes, because you passed me so fast. He goes, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to race that guy in the giant, in the World Cup. I go, really? He goes, yes, really. And he goes, here's what's going on with you, man. He goes, you need to quit making excuses for all the reasons why you can't win. And he goes, you need to start telling yourself all the reasons why you can't lose and why you have nothing to lose. He goes, because here's what you need to understand. He goes, what you sell to yourself is what you will buy. And what you buy is what you will sell to the world. And they will buy that from you. And I go, what? And he goes, what you sell to yourself, what you sell and what you buy, you actually believe it, and you buy it. That's what you're going to sell to other people, and they're going to believe it about you. So if you believe that you're a winner, if you believe you can't lose, everyone else is going to believe you're a winner and that you can't lose. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, you're right. He goes, just start listing off all the reasons why you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And you can't lose because you're willing to put in more. And he starts giving me a little talk. We get to the top. He skis off. He's like, all right, man, nice meeting you. Bye. Takes off. That was it. That small encounter. And that 3 months later in Garmisch, Germany, I won 2 gold medals. And I had never won anything before. And it was that thing where that valuable lesson where you realize, hey, man, you have to first sell yourself. You have to believe it. And if you can believe it, if you buy it and you really buy in, then you can project that. And other people will be like, oh yeah, they believe it too because you believe it. And it's powerful. And I think entrepreneurs need to know that about, like, anytime they're trying to grow their business or anything new that they want to go tackle, you have to first sell yourself. That's the most important sales call. The first sales call that you ever have to go on is you sell yourself. And then you have to be able to visualize it and see it. And then you can go out and sell other people on it. And I think a lot of people skip that step. They don't sell themselves. They go out and they try to sell others, but they're not completely sold themselves.
Yeah. So, that's incredible. That's an excellent lesson to pull. So I got one more quick question for you. So you had, your entrepreneurial game that was outdoors largely. You've had this incredible experience on the ski slope. You've had, the storage is usually outside and you're doing the thing. What do you do, like, for getting your best thoughts outside? Do you take walks? Are you hanging out by the ocean? What do you do outside?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I remember once I wanted to redo my goals. And I wanted to come up with a bunch of ideas. We were living in London at the time. And so my wife and I, we flew to Crete, the island of Crete in Greece. And we stayed at this place right on the ocean. We rented like a little Airbnb there for like a month. And they had a swimming pool and it was right by the waves. And then I would sit out there and I would hear that crashing, that water, and I just sat there with my notepad. And it's just great. There's something about flowing water where you kind of get some ideas. Like some people talk about getting them in the shower, right? Or having to keep a notepad next to your bed because sometimes ideas pop to you right before you fall asleep when you start to relax and you let your subconscious work. But I think, like, for me, like if I'm looking to for ideas and outdoors, I enjoy being near like water, right? Or the other thing too is I enjoy really long walks. Like my wife and I last summer, we went to Europe for a little while, and we just went for like long walks for like these long 5, 6, 7, 8 mile walks. And easy to do there because the architecture is great and stuff. But yeah, when you're out walking and you're breathing, getting that fresh air or whatever, your mind gets going. But yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I love that. Well, clearly you do a lot of walking because you got some excellent ideas.
Oh, thank you.
The brain is always going. I love that so much.
Yes.
This is cool. All right. Tell people where they can find out more and how, maybe get in that Facebook group with you. Yeah.
So if you go to dothebigdream.com, and then there's links on there, or you can just go straight to the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Do the Big Dream. So all you got to remember is Do the Big Dream. And listen, if you have and that big dream could be anything. That big dream doesn't have to necessarily be a business or a new business venture. I mean, there's all kinds of incredible things that could be your big dream. It could be like, you want to travel the world, but you don't quite know how to do it or go about it, or you don't really know where to get the funding to do it, or how to all that stuff. So, you can have all kinds of incredible dreams and say, okay, I've always wanted to do this. I don't know how to do it. I mean, let's say with travel, it's like, how do you create a way to get away from it all for a long time? Like in 2019, my wife and I did a trip around the world for 4 months. Wow. And, we flew to the UK and we spent some time in London. Then we went down to Southampton. We got on a cruise ship and we sailed over to France, down around Portugal. Then we went into the Med and around, France and Spain and Greece, and then through the Suez Canal. And we basically did the whole thing. We end up going, we would get off and we would spend time on the land and then get on a different ship. But we did several different ships, but we did everything from between London and Tokyo. We did it all. Everything you could think of that's in between there. We were all over the Middle East, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Oman, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, China, just the whole thing, man. We just did it all. And it was, you can do all these things in your life. You just have to have the vision. I mean, Sue, you're doing this cool thing in the Smoky Mountains, and that is something that probably originated in your mind,
It is 100%.
And you 100%. Saw it.
This is the Do the Big Dream Sue version.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really inspiring. People need to know that you get one life. And I was very fortunate to learn that lesson when I was in Desert Storm, when I was only 20 years old. I had a couple close calls and I realized, every day now is a gift. Yeah. And so when you realize that, when you realize that it can all be over like that, you also go about your life a little differently.
Agreed. This is fantastic. I would love to have you come back sometime too.
Yeah, I would love it. Yes.
Once this gets rolling, man. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'll have to come back and give you an update on the thing. And
I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really cool.
Yeah. It was wonderful meeting you. I really appreciate it.
You too.